Good morning, everyone. Today I am going to discuss again first unit of financial market and services. In this unit, I will discuss growth and development of the Indian financial system, weakness of Indian financial system, and different theories which are going to impact the financial system. Growth and development of Indian financial system. At the time of independence in 1947, there was no strong financial institutional mechanism in the country. The industrial sector had no access to the savings of the community. The capital market was primitive and shy. The private and unorganized sector played an important role in the provisions of liquidity. On the whole, there was problems and confusions in the financial system. After independence, the government adopted mixed economic system, a scheme of planned economic development was well in 1951 with the view to achieve the broad economic and social objective. The government started creating new financial institutions to supply finance both for agricultural and industrial development. The following developments took place in the Indian financial system. The first one is the nationalization of the financial institution. RBI, the leader of the financial system, was established as a private institution in 1935. It was nationalized in 1949. This was followed by the nationalization of the Imperial Bank of India. Insurance Corporation of India came into existence on 1st April 1956. Another important development was the nationalization of 14 major commercial banks in 1969. In 1980, 6 more banks were nationalized. Another landmark was the nationalism of the general insurance business and setting up of the General Insurance Corporation in 1972. Next one is the establishment of development banks. Another important landmark in the history of the development of the Indian financial system is the establishment of the new financial institution to supply institutional credit to industries. In 1949, RBI undertook a detailed study to find out the need for specialized institutions. The first development bank was established in 1948. That was Industrial Finance Corporation of India. In 1951, Parliament passed State Financial Corporation Act. Under this act, state government could establish financial corporation for their respective regions. The Industrial Credit and Investment Corporation of India, ICICI, were set up in the year 1955. It was supported by the Government of India, World Bank, etc. The Unit Trust of India was established in 1964 as a public sector institution to collect the savings of the people and make them available for productive ventures. The next one is establishment of the institution for the agriculture purpose. In 1963, the RBI set up the Agricultural Refinance and the Development Corporation to provide refinance support to the banks to finance major development projects, minor irrigation, land development, etc. In order to meet the credit needs of the agriculture and rural sector, National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development was set up in 1982. The main objective of the establishment of NABARD is to extend short-term, medium-term, and long-term finance to agriculture. The next one is the establishment of institution for housing finance. The National Housing Finance has been set up in July 1988 as an apex institution to mobilize resources for the housing sector and to promote housing finance institution. Now the next one is the establishment of the Stock Holding Corporation of India. In 1987, Stock Holding Corporation of India was set up. The main motive of their setup was to strengthen the stock and the capital market in India. Its objective is to provide quick share transfer facilities, clearing services, port services to investors. The next one is the establishment of the mutual fund and venture capital institutions. Mutual funds, as we know that, refers to the funds raised by the financial service companies by pooling the savings of the public and investing them in a diversified portfolio. They provide investment avenues for the small investors who cannot participate in the equities of big companies. Venture capital is a long-term risk capital to finance high technology projects. The IDBI Venture Capital Fund was set up in 1986. The ICICI and the UTI have jointly set up the Technology Development and Information Company of India Limited in 1988 to provide the venture capital. New Economic Policy 1991. Indian financial system has undergone a massive change since the announcement of the New Economic Policy in 1991. LPG, which stand for Liberalization, Privatization and Globalization, has transformed the Indian economy from closed economy to the open economy. The corporate industrial sector also have undergone changes due to the delicensing of industries, financial structure reforms, capital market reforms, and disinvestment in the public sector undertaking. Our next topic is weakness of the Indian financial system. There are the 6 weaknesses: lack of coordination among the financial institutions, other factors, dominance of the development banks in industrial finance, inactive and erratic capital market, unhealthy financial practice, monopolistic market structure, and I will discuss one by one all of them. The first one is the lack of the coordination among the financial institutions. As we know that there are the large number of the financial institutions. Most of the financial institutions are owned by the government. At the same time, the government is also controlling authority of these institutions, as there is a multiplicity of institutions in Indian financial system. Therefore, there is a lack of coordination in the working of these institutions. Next, dominance of the development banks in industrial finance. The industrial finance in India today is largely depend on the financial institutions set up by the government. They get most of their funds from their sponsors. They act as a distributive agencies. Hence, they fail to mobilize the savings of the public. They stand in the way of the growth of an efficient financial system in the country. Inactive, and erratic capital market. In India, the corporate customers are able to raise finance through development banks, so they need not go to the capital market. Moreover, they do not resort to the capital market because it is erratic and inactive. Investors too prefer to invest in the physical assets to investment in the financial assets. Unhealthy financial practice. Next one. The dominance of the development bank has developed unhealthy financial practice among corporate customers. The development banks provide most of the funds in the form of term loans. So, there is a predominance of debt in the financial structure of the corporate enterprise. This predominance of the debt capital has made the capital structure of the borrowing enterprise uneven and lopsided. When these enterprises faces financial crisis, the financial institution permit a greater use of debt than it is required. As a result, the matter is becoming worse. Then, monopolistic market structure. In India, some financial institutions are so large that they have created a monopolistic market structure in the financial system. For example, the entire life insurance business is in the hands of LIC. The weakness of this large structure is that it could lead to inefficiency in their working or mismanagement. Ultimately, it would relate to the development of the financial system of the country itself. Other factors. Apart from the above, there are some other factors which are also creating a problems to the growth of the Indian financial system, just like government burdened with the high level of the domestic debt, cooperative banks are labeled with scams, banks and the financial institutions have a high level of NPA, investor confidence reduced in the public sector undertakings, and the last one is the financial illiteracy. The next topic is relating to the theories of the impact of the financial development and saving. The first theory is a prior saving theory. According to this theory, saving is required for an investment. Stress the importance of monetary and the physical policy for promoting and mobilizing the saving voluntarily for investment. But it increasing the rate of growth of saving and investment and makes their composition, allocation and utilization more optimal and efficient. Moreover, it is going to reduce the idle saving. It also reduces unfruitful investments and the cost of transferring savings to the investment. But the question is arise, how is this achieved? Any economy in a given period of time, there are some people whose current expenditure is less than their current income, while there are those people whose current expenditure exceeds their current income. In a well-known terminology, the formers are called the ultimate savers or the surplus spending units, and the latter are called the ultimate investors or the deficit spending units. In this way, there is a function of the financial system to establish a bridge between the savers and investors and thereby help the mobilize of savings to enable the utilization of that saving which are converted into the investments and in investments idea which will become the realities. Moreover, it increase the growth of the savings and investments and make their allocation, composition and utilization more optimum. Our next theory is the credit creation theory. According to this theory, the contribution of financial system in the economic growth is not restricted to the prior based investment theory. In simple terms, credit creation is the expansion of deposit, and banks can expand their demand deposit as a multiple of their cash reserve because demand deposits serves as a principal medium of exchange. Demand deposits are an important for money supply, and the expansion of the demand deposit means the expansion of money supply. The entire structure of the banking is based on credit. Credit basically means getting the purchasing power now and promising to pay at some time in the future. Bank credit means bank loans and advances. A bank keeps a certain part of its deposit as a minimum reserves to meet the demand of its depositors and lend out the remaining to earn income. The loan is credited to the account of the borrower. Every bank loan creates an equivalent deposits in the bank. Therefore, credit creation means expansion of the bank deposits. This theory addressed the issue in two steps. Firstly, the financial system, who is playing a very important role for the economic development, not through the prior-based theory, but by creating credit in the anticipation of savings. Second, the credit leads to investments which generate the appropriate level of income, which in turn leads to an amount of saving which are equal to the investment already undertaken in the process, keeping the system in equilibrium. There are certain concepts relating to the credit creation. The bank acts as a business institution which try to maximize the profit through loans and advances from the deposits. The bank deposits can be divided into two parts, primary deposits and the secondary deposits. The bank has to keep the cash reserve ratio also. But there are the certain limitation of credit creation also. Just like the interest rate that bank charge on the loan and advances is greater than the interest that the bank gives to the depositor for the money deposited in the bank. Our next theory is the theory of the forced saving. According to this theory, that investment in an economy should be considered not with or without the prior saving, but with the forced saving. It also states that an investment is not determined by saving, but it is the saving which determines the investment. Forced saving holds a major role in describing how expansionary monetary policy in turn can cause artificial booms. Forced saving occurs when the spending of a person is less than their earnings due to the consumer goods shortage, which can cause hyperinflation, Forced saving can also happen when available goods are too expensive. Therefore, a person who has no access to credit has to accumulate the money for their purchase over an extended period of time. Unlike saving money, forced saving is involuntarily decreasing present consumption, while saving money is voluntarily lowering the present consumption for an increase of the consumption in future. The next one is the financial liberalization theory. According to this theory, elimination of the financial repression through liberalization, deregulation, and the privatization is essential to eliminate all the ill effects of the financial repression. Moreover, financial liberalization as the elimination of the series of different of a series of restrictions in the financial sectors in order to bring it in a line with that of the developed economies. There are principally three types of financial liberalization. Firstly, this term may be used to describe domestic financial sector reform such as privatization and increase in the credit extension to the private sector. Secondly, financial liberalization may be used to refer to a stock market liberalization. In this case, stock market liberalization occurs when a country opens up its stock market to the foreign investors, at the same time allowing domestic firms access to international financial market. And finally, financial liberalization may refers to the liberalization of the capital account. This is a situation where special exchange rates for the capital account transactions are relaxed, where domestic firms are permitted to borrow funds from abroad, and where our reserve requirements are lowered. Thank you very much. In the next lecture, I am going to start the second unit and we will discuss the monetary policy. Thank you.